What's up? What's up? Welcome back to Dear Black Woman, the podcast where we hold space for conversations that actually really matter to Black women all over the globe. I am Cammie Red, joined by my co-hosts today, Lauren Edwards and Tenisha Mercer. Today we're talking about parenting and family dynamics in the Black community. We have a special guest joining us, executive coach and author of Raising Justice, Doris Jackson-Shazier. I should have asked her how to pronounce that. I'm so sorry, Doris. She's a speaker and an expert in building thriving environments at work and home. So together we're going to dive into the evolution of Black parenting, breaking generational cycles, and raising emotionally intelligent, confident children. Whether you're a parent thinking about becoming one or just reflecting on your upbringing, this episode is for you. So let's dive in and get started. Hello, Lauren. Tenisha. Okay, so I did confess in the pre-interview that I was probably the only one that did the homework, right?
But I believe our guest Doris will understand because it's all about parenting and family dynamics. And as I said, I'm not doing either, but well at the moment. So.
Yes, Lauren, you're the only one with the actual 8-year-old, so you know. Your hands are full. I totally understand. Well, I read Miss Doris's book, okay? And I did cry a little bit. I exclaimed a little bit. I was really like, this is really super cool. So I'm going to bring Miss Doris on.
Come on.
Hello, Miss Doris.
Hey, good morning, ladies.
Morning. Well, here for me and Tenisha, it's afternoon. For you guys, it's morning.
Yeah, that's right. It's like 3 o'clock over there, Lauren.
3:30 here, 4:30 where Tenisha is. Yeah.
Oh, well, good afternoon to you.
Thank you.
Well, Miss Doris, we're going to jump right into this. Tell us about your book. What was your inspiration behind writing this? And as a mother, what do you think about parenting and family dynamics right now in 2025?
All right, so that's loaded. So I'll start with my inspiration. My inspiration was a couple of different things. Number one, my daughter, whose name is Justice. So it's literally Raising Justice. And I really wanted to tell, my story of just how brilliant of a child she is, or she's a young lady now, but also really to encourage others. In the book, I like to tell people the beginning and the end of the book. I don't think it spoils it because the meat of it is really in the middle. But this book begins outside of what I thought was an abortion clinic. I was a high achieving first generation college student. I felt like I was carrying my whole family into this collegiate experience, only to end up pregnant after my first year in college. And it begins outside of an abortion clinic where I'm contemplating what would my life be if I continue this pregnancy. And I like to say by faith, a series of events take place that allows me to go through with this pregnancy. And I am now the mother of a 19-year-old college graduate. And so, thank you.
Go, Doris, go.
Thank you. So it was exciting and a full circle story about, and it ends with me seeing her at the same age that I was when I was pregnant, about 2 miles away from what I thought was that abortion clinic, walk across the collegiate stage. And
wow.
I tell the story of this mother-daughter relationship.
Oh my God, why, Doris? Why? I can't stop now. That's it already.
I told you hear me say it.
It's definitely a God story. I'm very proud of it. And so that was my inspiration, which really was to share with others that experience. But on a larger, more macro scale, it really was an opportunity to share with others how we can be the parents that we didn't have. And how do you build a mother-daughter relationship when you haven't really experienced that type of relationship that you're trying to create? And so I have a bond and a relationship with my daughter that's different than what I was able to grow up with. I didn't grow up with my mom. I didn't have a very close relationship with my grandmother. And so I created the mother-daughter relationship that I would have wanted growing up. And so I want to encourage people to think differently, to parent differently. And so when I think of 2025, it's really about how do we balance accountability with our children and morale. And so that's a lot of my focus in not only my family life, but also in my professional life. I teach people how to balance accountability and morale.
I love that. First of all, kudos to you for creating a relationship with your daughter that was outside of what you were used to and what was the norm for you, for wanting something better for both of you all. So kudos to you for that.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I know I like you. I did not grow up with my mother, but unlike you, I was actually quite close to both of my grandmothers. That's who have been extremely inspirational in my life, in my upbringing. I often give my grandmothers credit for everything, meaning, from me being a chef to me knowing how to sew and going into fashion. Both of my grandmothers were very poignant in that. I learned how to cook from my grandmothers. I learned how to garden from my grandmothers. I learned how to sew from my grandmothers. But you notice I'm not talking anything about my parents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I learned some important lessons from my grandmother too.
Yeah.
Some good, some what to do, and some of the things that I don't think I would do it that way.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I've had my daughter that I realized that how my mom raised me, I'm trying to divert from how it made me feel. So I think you're a lot more aware of how things make you feel.
Mm-hmm.
So when you project it on your child, you try and change that format. There are always things that are going to be similar.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, I'm really close to one of my aunties, very, very close. And she was close to my mom for a long time. And we found quite a good connection because she's making me be aware of things that, your mom raised you like that. Your mom raised you that way, but you don't need to stay that way. And there's certain things that I do, certain habits, certain, ways I am. One of them, I think we've spoken about it before, Cammy, is like, we don't really talk about things. We don't really discuss. There's, whereas, just this week, I had my daughter crying her eyes out to me in the middle of the week, and all I wanted to do was discuss what can I do to make you feel, whereas my mum would probably have been more like, wipe your tears.
Yeah.
My experience too.
How do we sort this out? Just stop crying. Don't. Whereas I want her to cry. The same thing with my son. If you want to get it out and let's go, but it's very different. And I don't know if it's a time, because like I said,
it's a generational thing. That's what you're saying.
It definitely is.
But then I do believe on the flip side, I was talking to one of my good friends about it, and we was talking about how we raise our children. On the flip side, I don't think my children or a lot of children now really know hardship neither. And when I mean hardship, I don't mean like, to go without or not to have immediately. Does that make sense? So we are like, my child doesn't know that he has to wait for things, or
but that has a lot to do, I believe, with our upbringing and also the generation before us, our parents' upbringing as well. So one of the things that I've studied and I've learned about, each generation is we try to provide our children with the things that we did not have. 100%. And that access to things that we didn't have access to. Even with our grandparents and our parents, they did the same things with us. Mm-hmm. So as each generation comes along, things become easier for them to access. Whereas, for us, it may not have been so easy to have access to things. We knew what it was to wait patiently, but we live in a microwave society right now where everything is immediate immediate results, immediate this. We're in social media, so it's gotta be seen, it's gotta be right now, it's gotta be every day, it's gotta be all the time.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily realistic in some situations. And I think we've come to an understanding where we appease our children with the things that they want. We give them and give them and give them as an excuse for not having the time to spend with them sometimes.
100%, 100%, 100%. I will give you that one. That is what we do.
And we talked about this before about allowing iPads, iPhones, computers, TV screens to raise our children because we're busy doing something else. And
also, I mean, I don't know what it's like in Atlanta or in the States or even in France, but in the UK, well, certain parts of the UK and where I am, we don't let our children out to play. So I don't know if it's the same where you are. So
I'm going to say this. I think that has become a generational thing.
That's crazy. I used to come from school, get changed, I'm out the door.
Yeah.
And that used to be our babysitter or our time.
Girl, listen, I'm going to tell you, my grandmama would put us out on the summertime. She put us out at a certain time of day and don't come back to the house until later. We would be all over.
You had the space to get on with what you needed to get on with. And now you don't have that time and space, because I find any activities my son has, I take him to it. I sit there, I wait for it to finish, I pick him up, I bring him home. So if you think about and we're talking about nearly every day, right? You would come in, you would get changed, you would go out. Even if it was for an hour, 2 hours, every single day, that means your parents had 2 or grandparents had 2 hours every day to just get themselves together after what they need to do. But now we haven't got that time unless you're paying for that time and you're taking them to that activity or that after club or whatever it is that they do.
No, that's true.
Yeah. Like,
I smell freedom. For me,
that goes towards everything as well. It's a safety issue now. Like with me, when I think about this, I'm thinking this could never happen in this day and age. When I was in middle school, and I don't know if you guys you have middle school over there, Lauren, but middle school is from 6th grade to 8th grade. So
what age? Tell me your age.
It would have been from 11 till about 13.
That's secondary school here.
Yep. From 11 to 13, I know, Tenisha, you probably are familiar because you've been in Atlanta before, but I caught the MARTA bus by myself to school. Yeah.
As soon as you're 11 here and you go secondary school, that's bus time. Like, you get on the bus.
No, not the school bus.
No.
Public transportation.
Yeah.
And
time.
Yeah, I don't think that could happen in this day and age anymore.
But that's why I'm saying.
I would feel comfortable with that. Yeah.
Like, and let me say something to you. I caught the MARTA bus. My grandmother lives in the ghetto here in Atlanta. I'm just gonna keep it real. She lives in the heart of Atlanta. So when people say where you're from, I am literally from East Atlanta. Okay. Yeah. I caught the MARTA bus and if you're familiar with it, it's called Thomasville, and it's a little small community inside of East Atlanta, and it's not like it's the best place to be in life. It is not. So I caught the MARTA bus from Thomasville, which is on East Atlanta, all the way up to Buckhead, which is North Atlanta. And I had to get off the MARTA bus, get on a train, and get on another bus from the ages of 11 to 13. That could not happen.
But do you think that the things that are happening, that why we wouldn't do that, weren't happening then? Or do you think
I cannot say it wasn't, because if you're familiar with Atlanta, you know Wayne Williams was out here killing people then.
That's what I'm saying. Of course, there was murderers, there's pedophiles, there's people kidnapping children. It's been happening since the beginning of time.
Well, I think part of the difference is our exposure to those events. Yeah. So much like you, I grew up in Miami, Florida. I grew up in Liberty City. I remember getting, the city bus, getting a transfer, catching another city bus, and then walking down. And I was doing it in elementary school. Yeah. My grandmother did it with us for 2 or 3 days, and then me and my brother did it the rest of the time.
Mhm.
And so she afforded that level of trust. But again, we viewed the world on our community.
Mhm.
You know, I don't think she feared somebody taking me. She may have feared gun violence. She may have feared certain things that happen at parties and things like that. But she trusted that I could go there and back because in our community, it felt okay.
But you know what?
Now we are exposed to all the different things that
We
happen in
are,
the
but
community. So
we
you're
are
a lot
also
more aware of the possibilities.
we're filled with technology that also allows us access to that, like what they called the air tags, the mobile phones,
we're able to track now, and we still don't feel safe.
Do you see what I mean?
Exactly.
And
Still
that's what
don't.
I'm saying. Like I feel like we're creating this for ourselves. I think we've got so scared of. I mean, when I go to Lisbon, when I go to Portugal, when I go to Lisbon, the parents think I've lost my mind because they are so open. They are still of an old school value, like an old school way. When you go to the park, I'm like looking, where's my child? Where's my child? Even my child's looking at me like, oh, he's gone off. Is it okay? Like, and they say, stop. We don't do that here. We don't fence our children, and we let our children have freedom, have space, have them.
Well, they do in Japan and China. Have you guys seen where kids actually go to the grocery store? They shop. They have all of those responsibilities.
Very advanced in life skills, right?
Yeah.
They really
And
are.
that's what I'm saying. I think certain parts of the world, I think I hate doing this whole conspiracy thing, but I do believe that they've created this thing for us that is kind of like mentally we are so stuck. But and what are we giving to our children? Because remember, when you talk about it, Doris or Tenisha or Cami, you know, you had life skills because you was exposed to certain things, certain situations. You had to get yourself out, and you didn't have access to a mobile phone and tags.
You're right.
You need a payphone.
You understand? And that was if you was lucky because you had to go, had to change, you had to do this. You know, you had to remember the number. But what I'm saying is that now, what are we giving our children? We haven't given them any, and now we expect them to be like these people that can navigate the world, but we haven't given them the skills.
I think on some levels we overprotect them in some ways. You know, it's like you mentioned in other countries, and like in France, I noticed that they don't hover around these kids. To your point, Lauren, they like the mama is down the street and the kid is running up the block, right? And so I think it's just a lot of it is cultural. I think we have built this shield around the kids, and then we think that, okay, well, now you're 18 or 17, you're supposed to
go out into the world.
They've been shielded from everything.
Yeah, I mean, I did allow Ashley. I think my daughter was the last kind of. I let her. She's 23 now, and I let her have that. So she is a bit more worldly, a bit more kind of, I'd let her travel. She went, you know, on a holiday by herself when she was about 17, 18. I let her do that. Because my mum let me do that. And I do feel like it giving me the independence. I'm not scared to kind of go place. I'm aware and I know, but I'm not scared. But I do feel with my son, it's going to be a completely different situation.
I was going to say, so I'm a boy mom. And for me, I'm always scared for my son. And here's why I'm always scared for my son. My son is big. He is Black. And he's always been big for his age.
Right.
So I have always tried to stand in protection of my child because of how the world would view him. So my son is 6'6", 300 pounds.
Wow.
And he's always been a tall, big boy. And I have always, like, you know, I will fight and bust anybody down for my child. And I have always...
Did you give him the protection, though? So did you allow him to go out and about, or was you kind of like...
No. I allow him, like, even now, like, my son is 26 years old right now.
Yeah, you can't allow him nothing now, Camille.
Yeah, right now, my son tells me... My son be like, leave me alone.
Looking down at you.
Right. He said, you do realize I'm grown, right? I said, you do realize you my only child, right?
Right.
Yeah, no.
And
Yeah,
even my
you have to
mother.
strike that balance, and it's really hard sometimes. So I have an interesting parenting experience in terms of I have a 20-year-old daughter, but I have a 17-year-old son, a 12-year-old son, and a
Wow.
5-year-old son.
Yeah.
And so I'm experiencing kids at all the different stages at the same time. So I
Doris, really?
into
Doris,
young
really?
adulthood, yeah, with my daughter. But then I have a child in kindergarten.
Oh my
And so-
God, Doris.
I can't imagine. I can't imagine.
It is so interesting. Like, I don't even fake it for people. I'm like, it's just as crazy as it sounds. Like, the way you feel when you hear it is that's exactly what it is.
How do
I'm
you
so tired now. I can
that?
imagine having a small child. I'm like, that child will be raising
That's
that
There
child.
are days where I'm here and I'm like, I can't believe I have a 5-year-old.
5-year-old.
Right.
You got
Someone
a
to collect mine. His real parents. I'm waiting for his
5-year-old.
real parents to come and get him. I'm like, whose child is this? Why does he keep following me? He's calling me mom.
It's definitely an interesting experience. I love to tell the story of when we were at her college orientation and we were dividing up the parents and the students. And they're like, we need all parents to go this way and we need all students to go this way. And so I start to head in the parent direction as she heads in the student direction. And the lady yells over, she went to FAMU here in Florida, and she yells over, baby, I want all, I need all the students to go this way. And I'm like, I'm a parent. I'm sorry, ma'am. And my daughter's like,
tuition. Hello.
Yeah, listen, Doris, I understand that. My son can't stand it either because, of course, none of us as Black mothers look our age.
yes.
I'm going to tell you, Lauren and her daughter look like sisters. I'm going to just keep it real with you. Yeah, my son hates that too because and when we're out somewhere, people usually think he's either my brother or my boyfriend.
My son is 27 and he's
Wow.
since he's been a teenager, he said the same thing. He's like, Mom, like, why do you think when we're in public, I'm loudly calling you mom? And I'm like,
yeah, just let's cut that. I mean, it was quite embarrassing when I first took my daughter to secondary school, which was what do you guys call it over there?
Like middle school.
Middle school. Yeah.
I'm still on the wall on the pictures in the same. And she was like, do not go near them. Do not go. And I'm like, look, I'm here.
That is hilarious.
I had her when I was like 17, 18.
Yeah,
I'm still
I was a young mom too. So
she
yeah.
was like, do not go near that. How dare you? And I'm just like, look, there I am. Look. Yeah,
No, that's
so
funny.
it is crazy. But I mean, no one gives us no manual for this situation.
They really don't.
They don't. I would like to say, I do think we are changing as parents overall. I mean, when I even look at my male friends who, there was a massive kind of wave of men that left their women. If I look at like my mum's age and my generation of dads, there was a massive wave where, especially in the UK, I don't know, maybe in the US, I don't know, but where men left their kids and would go and just have kids and just keep going. And
it's the same. It's the same.
Yeah, but I do believe now the dynamic is changing where if they're not staying, they are still being very much a part.
What I'm noticing is that Black men in our community, and I'm not just going to say in our community, I'm noticing that men are becoming more proactive parents now.
Yes.
More so than they used to be.
Yeah.
And I'll say this, I even know a lot of single fathers. And what I mean by that is I know fathers who actually have custody of their children and are raising their children. So I give them kudos for that because as a mom, I know how difficult that was for me. So I also know that the world doesn't quite accept that sometimes. And it can be equally, if not more difficult for men to actually endure that.
Do you think?
I feel like we give them, I feel the opposite. I feel like when you see a man and he's got a kid or two, all the women are like, oh, let me help them.
I feel like we do over the top. I feel like we're over the top for men. And that's not
the baby on hip, one in the stroller, and don't get no help.
Do you think we do that because we know what it's like to be single moms? So we try. So here's where it goes back to. my grandmother used to have this saying, and my mother, they also passed it down to us, where they said, we raise our daughters, but we spoil our sons.
Baby the
Do
boys.
you think
Yeah.
we view men in that manner, to where
I think we do.
when we see a single father who's raising his children, we want to dote on him and help him because he's more of a father, and he's, whereas women, we're like, oh, she's got that, she's good.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
I think that I think that that's the exact sentiment that we have. And I think we have to balance it, because what we do is we create this cycle of then boys who become men who don't necessarily know how to be men, or they need to be mothered in adulthood.
Yeah. Who wants that? Like, who wants that?
And I think we've all
very conscientious of it.
Huh? What you said, Cammy?
I think we've all dated that.
Yes.
Oh, when I see it, it's a red flag. Like, I'm running the other way, like Shikari. So I often say, like, okay, so my son is 27, my daughter is 25, and my youngest is 24. Wow. And with my son especially, the way I think of it, and I'm widowed, and so the way I think of it, the way we thought of it, was that I want to raise someone that's going to be a good husband and partner. Yeah. I don't want, he's engaged, right? I don't want his soon-to-be wife coming looking at me like, did you drop the ball, right? That, like, maybe I mothered him, maybe, you know what I'm trying to say? Like, I don't.
But I think
it's be like I babied him.
Don't you? It's hard not to, because I think what happens, I think you need to definitely get to the point where you transit, because one minute they are little boys, and next minute they're men, and it's you having to switch from them being little boys to men. And I think that's the adjustment where some mums just don't do that, where I've seen, like, with people that I know, even my own mom, I would say even my own mom, and other people, not saying any names or like no,
right. But
I feel like sometimes they're actually proud, some of these mums, that their boys are still coming around them, or that that maybe they're a bit dysfunctional for their partners, because it gives these some mums a sense of self-worth at some point.
The mother, like, sometimes in some dynamics, and I've seen it in my family too, in my close family, where the boy child becomes like the de facto partner.
Yep, I knew what you were
going to say. The mama literally ruins that boy for any other woman. She ruins them, and so and then she's involved in the dynamic. And I always tell my son, I'm like, you have to, that is your choice of your partner. Mm-hmm. I am not involved in that situation, right? She is the one you have to make happy. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Don't want to get involved in any arguments, none of that. Like, I know my role.
Teaching that balance starts earlier.
What you say, Lauren?
No, I was saying in African cultures, like, the son, especially if the dad is no longer available or the dad is no longer around, the son then becomes the man of the house. And actually, very much so in an African household and an African tradition.
I remember, we talked about that.
That man, that boy or that man has to step into the role where he hasn't got a choice. He hasn't really got a choice. He then has to become the mum's partner to some degree. And actually, whoever then comes into his life is just like secondary to the mum. I think the mum gets called like the matriarch. You know what I mean? Like that thing. And everything goes through her, like what you spend, what you don't spend. And that in itself is quite destroying. I mean, I've dated African men, and I've seen it firsthand how it can really be like, whoa, this is, I'm from a Caribbean background. It's not really as in mind, but when you get involved with someone like that who actually has to be like, I have to ask my mom first, or I have to check in with my mom, in so many words, but pretty much so it is a bit like, oh,
you're in a relationship with the son and the mama, right? It feels like it.
Yeah. And that's why it's hard. Like, I'm not gonna be funny or anything, but that's why when African men come over to America, the mothers often don't want them to marry American women, because or Caribbean women, because that woman is not going to allow for that type of relationship to take place.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Doris.
Definitely not a westernized approach. Like
Yeah.
it's not going to happen that way. Here's what I would like to add is I think sometimes as women or as people as a whole, we get stuck on raising children instead of raising adults.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's one of the things that I became keenly aware of, and I talk about it a little bit in my book, is I recognized really early that my child is going to be a child for a limited part of time, but they're going to be an adult for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
And part of my responsibility is to create a great childhood, but also to prepare them for adulthood. And I think that's the little connection that gets missed sometimes. We focus on raising the children, raising children instead of preparing adults. And that's a part of our job too.
And
see, I want to balance. I want to balance because I feel like in a lot of our households, and I don't know, Lauren, if you can speak to this or not, but I know in a lot of our households, it's like the kid is also a de facto adult. Like the kid is paying bills. They're in high school paying bills. They're also at the same time, they're told if you don't like it, you can get out.
Yeah,
so
and I was one of those kids. So I
they,
understand exactly what you're talking about.
You don't know anything at 18. You think you do, but you don't.
Yeah, so I think we think about raising adults. I don't think it's necessarily just responsibility. I'm thinking about emotionally. I'm thinking about psychological. I'm thinking about mental. I'm thinking about finances. So what type of knowledge are we downloading into our children that allows them to enter the world? I'm thinking about confidence. I'm thinking about eye contact. That's something that I'm still working on with my boys, is that you look people in their eye when you're speaking to them, because I want them to be confident men and adults when they leave.
Do you believe women can raise strong men?
Say it again.
You believe women can raise strong men?
Yes. Now, I'm not in it alone. My husband is here and present.
No, I'm saying generally. Like, would you say that women alone can raise strong men?
Yes, I do believe women can raise strong men. I also do believe that it also requires a community, because certain things are taught and other things are caught.
Yeah.
And so they catch things as well. So some things aren't just expressive. That's just like my daughter has behaviors that I didn't teach her, but she saw me do it. And so now she does it. And so I think that we need a community of men, or a community of men would be good to help with the modeling part of it. But I do believe that as women, we can teach them what they need to know to be strong men.
I don't know. I'm on the fence with that, because I feel like, would my husband or would my partner be able to teach my daughter how to be a strong woman, or what he would view as a strong woman? Would he actually know what I go through as a woman to be able to relay that to a woman? Does that make sense? Like,
I understand what you're saying. I think there's characteristics and qualities that can be taught, but then the other portion of it is it has to be modeled, and that's where community comes in. Yeah, that's where exposure to other people. That's where mentors.
Because you think about it, Lauren. Think about it. Like if you have a single dad, for example, and let's say that daughter, like she's about to get her period, he doesn't know, how to handle that. So what does he typically do? He's going to talk to his mother, aunties, women friends, whatever, and to help her kind of guide her through that process, because these are all biological functions that he knows nothing of. So it's
I'm talking more of like, I feel like that, like you said, but I feel like the things that we discuss as women and things that we go through, even as Black women or whatever it is, the things we actually experience as a woman, I think is very hard to kind of, like you said, it has to come from external. So if I'm trying to explain to my son something about, being a man and how to be a man, and he's looking at me and he's thinking, and you know this because of what?
But here's the thing:
I'm going to be honest with you. Go ahead, Doris.
No, I was going to say, you do know what a good man is because you had to select one. And so, you know what you want as a woman, and a part of what a good man is how they make women feel. So you are in fact a teacher of him becoming a good man, because you're telling him what it's like as a recipient of his efforts.
Well,
So
I went through
one factor that is saying that's a relationship factor.
I've had this conversation with my son. I went through this where my son told me I couldn't tell him what it was like to be a Black man because I wasn't a Black man. And I explained to him, no, I can't tell you what it's like to be a Black man, but I can tell you what I've seen in the men that's been modeled before me. So I can tell you, you know, from the factors of how my father acted with me. I can tell you from the factors of, you know, my cousins, my uncles, those good Black men. I can give you examples of those, and I can put you in their presence, and I can show you those things. But no, I can't tell you what it's like to be a Black man. No, I cannot. But
and also remember, you are coming from a very biased point of view.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is that you're also discussing this from this point of view, right? So you've said, I know what men I've kind of chosen or I've not liked, or, you know, men that have been in my presence. And so it's all coming directly from mum, what mum's view was, what mum's view. Now, let's be real. Some women in themselves are projecting what they believe is correct as a man or as a, you know, this man or whatever. But their choices might not have been good in the first place, but what they believe is a healthy relationship or what they believe is okay for a man to do is very different. So how I perceive a man to be and what I perceive a strong man to be is going to be very different to Cammie. It's going to be different to my male friends. It's different to my uncle, different to my... Everyone's going to see. And then when you put this person out into the world... Mm-hmm. They're gonna look and say, "What the heck?" Like you clearly.
I think that's a part of that's a part of life. I mean, that's
where we've gone wrong. I think we've got so many women raising men, and now we've let them out into the world, and we've got.
But see, here's the thing, though. I think for a lot of there is no choice. When you look at the numbers, it is mainly women, and so if you have a boy child, you literally have no choice. But at the same time, I think that we don't as a community hold men responsible.
100%.
If you're creating these father abandoned households, whether you're with the mother or not, you still have a responsibility to raise that child, that, you know, to model, right? Whether you're with the mother or not.
The parenting experience, we all get the cards that we're dealt, because you could be in a 2-parent household with a man who does not do what he's supposed to do, and that's being modeled before that child.
Yeah,
exactly.
You have a child that's there who may grow up with certain inadequacies because that's what was modeled to them. And so I think either way you put it, it's going to be a certain way.
So what it boils down to is this. Yes, we have a hand in raising our children, but what I'm hearing you ladies say is even after they leave our nest, life is still going to be a surprise for them. Life is still going to give them some unexpected turns that we were not able to teach them or show them about. But it happened to us as well. And if I'm being honest with you, that's what shaped us into being the people that we are today. It wasn't, yes, we had lessons from what our parents taught us, but what shaped us were the lessons that we learned from the world.
Yeah.
But see, it's a difference too. I think that our kids can communicate. I think that I was raised by my grandparents. And Doris, I love your name because my grandmother was also named Doris. So you know, it's like I feel like our children can talk to us. Yeah. Like I didn't grow up like being raised by my grandparents. They were like, my mother was a single, you know, teenage mom. And so my grandparents raised me. They weren't the I love you type. You knew they loved you because they provided for you. They didn't tell you they loved you.
Sure.
They didn't tell me much. Like I learned from them, but like having a conversation with them was different because I had to, like, you have to stay in a child's place. My children can talk to me and be like, okay, I didn't like this, or mom, like what's going on? I feel like we break those chains that come up.
So let me say this to you guys. I am a product of a single father. My father raised me, but my grandmothers were instrumental in that upbringing. It took me a very long time because my father is not an emotional person. There was no I love yous, no hugs, none of that growing up. But my relationship with my mother, it took me a while to come to grips with that because I blamed her for a lot of things. Okay. And, you know, as now my relationship with my mother is different, where my mother and I are extremely close. Well, my sister and my mother raised my sister, but she didn't raise me. Mm-hmm. And my sister had some difficulties in life with substance abuse and things of that nature. Well, my sister has since overcome those things, and she likes to have real conversations with my mother that my mother is not trying to have with her. Yeah. My sister called me the other day, and she was very frustrated and very upset. And I'm gonna tell you what she said. She said, and y'all know how we do. If you got siblings, you've heard this before. She said, I just had to cuss out your mama.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, your mom.
Yeah, your mama.
And I said, what happened? And she said, you know, she started to try to come down on me on the type of mother that I am, because I allow my nephew, she said, I allow him to do this. I allow him to speak his mind. I allow him. And, you know, she said she was judging me and telling me that if I didn't do this and I didn't do that, then, you know, this wouldn't be this way. And she said, I literally stopped and I told your mom, your way of parenting sucked. She said, wow. She said, I told her, and let me say this to you. The reason why my sister has the strength and the confidence to do this is because overcoming substance abuse means that she had to go through therapy. Mm-hmm. Yes. And her therapist, and in her therapy, she had to address things that had happened to her in her youth that put her on the road to
go in there,
to go into that situation. So she said she told my mother, she said, you messed us up. She said, you messed us all up and you have yet to apologize for it.
And they won't.
Wow.
I feel like that generation, and even the great grandparents, it just doesn't happen.
Yeah, and I say this to say, my mother told her she didn't have anything to apologize for, and I told and let me say this, I'm very honest. My son didn't have the best upbringing because I was a teenage parent and I went out here and I tried to do everything on my own. But as I got older, I apologized to my son. I apologized to him for the things that I drug him through, because he was raised, like I tell him all the time, I grew up with you. So the mother you got is not the person who I am now.
Email or phone or something. Sorry.
What is that dinging? Does anybody hear that?
Is it someone's email?
I think so.
Yeah, I think that's what was probably on my end.
Oh, okay.
So I think in all of this, though, we won't see the product really of our children, I reckon, until they actually hit our age. Because
when they become parents,
when they become parents, I suppose.
That's one of the things I talk about in the book, is how you understand your parents so much more once you become one.
Yep.
Yeah, you really do understand even the things that they weren't great at. Even those things, you almost understand how they got there, and there's this little bit of grace, I think, that you can extend once you see how easy it is to get caught up. I remember the first time I yelled at my daughter because she went close to the street. And it took me back to when my grandmother yelled at me for something. I'm like, oh my God, she wasn't angry at me. She was afraid. Yeah. That was fear that yelled out that way.
But I don't feel like
that she hated me or something.
I told my kids, I have apologized to my kids, and I told them that, you know, like the person I am even now at 50, I had 3 kids by 26. My son at 22, 24, 26, right? So I didn't quite grow up with them, but in a way I did. And so I tell them, like, I'm at 50, I'm a different person, maturity level. Yeah. And I told them that if I had to do over again, I would be much more patient. I would be the mom that yelled less. I probably would be more of a gentle parent. But back then I was figuring things out. I was stressed. I had 3 babies, you know, and
it's real life. It's real life. It's real life versus what we the ideology versus real life, they're they're very different. And every time, you know, when I even think, why wasn't my mum like that? Why didn't my dad do that? You know, it's because we weren't in that environment at that specific time. But what I do believe that they've raised us to kind of, like I said, have certain life skills, maybe not like giving us all the comfort and the love and all that, but they've given us other skills. And the good thing is that, well, as long as we continue to give our children them life skills mixed with the love, because I think that's the balance. I think sometimes we, you know, I look at me and even my friends, and we're doing a lot of the loving stuff and less life skills because we overcompensate. Like you said. Like I love Zane all the time. I'm like, oh, Zane, come give me a hug. Come give mommy a hug. Come give me a kiss. He's like, ugh, get off me. And then I'll be like, can you do that? No, I can't do that. The other day, he actually asked me to open a packet for him. I was like, are you kidding? No, I'm not opening it. So if you want to eat that biscuit thing, you better learn to open the damn packet yourself. You know what I mean? Normally, though, I'd be like, oh, okay, let me open it. You know, you just... I couldn't imagine.
That's balance.
It's a balance.
If I went to my mom, can you open this packet? She'll go, what do you think this is? Yes. What do you think this is? I'll be like, okay, let me just not ask you ever again. Yeah,
you might have got hit with the package. That might have happened.
Listen,
right?
Let me tell you something. I was cooking at 10. Okay. I was frying chicken. I was making macaroni and cheese. I was cooking at 10. And let me be very clear with you on something. So was my son. Okay. My son will act like right now, and this is the funny part. My son will put on an act for people. Okay. He will make people think that he cannot cook. And let me first of all,
so someone could do it for him.
Yeah, which is really sick. Which is sad because I'm a professional chef. So my son can cook. And what I tell people is, I say, don't fall for that. I said, that boy was making red clam sauce when he was 10 years old. Okay?
Doris, can I ask you something? Because like I said, it's very different. Like Ashley, the same thing you were saying, Ashley can cook, and I like encourage her to make things from quite a young age. But I find with my son who's 7, do you find there's a difference in your daughter who's older was learning things from a young age, and now you've got your younger one, you don't really want them in the kitchen, you don't really want them doing all this stuff, or no?
No. I actually encourage them the same way I encouraged her when she was a little bit younger. Again, I always wanted to have the balance. So I recognized really early that my children needed the things that I didn't have, but they needed a little bit of the things that I did have in order to kind of balance out their character. And so I teach a lot of independence. I start them early. At 3 or 4, I put, little drinks, fruit cups, things at the bottom of the fridge so that they can go and get their own snack. I start teaching them how to use the toaster or just little kitchen equipment that won't harm them. So my kids, even the 5-year-old, if he's hungry, he has the ability to go in the kitchen and knows the things that he can access and get for himself. But no, I start teaching him earlier. My 12-year-old, he knows how to make a grilled cheese. He knows how to make a spaghetti. But just giving them certain skills along the way, because again, I want to create that balance for them.
I remember my mom saying, because I remember my mom saying to me, my brother's 5 years older than me, and my mom used to say to me, if he's in my kitchen, you need to when I'm at work, if he's in my kitchen, you need to tell me he's not allowed in my kitchen, okay? Because because he used to fall asleep. He used to
I was gonna say, now my baby daddy burned down his mama kitchen.
And one day I came and he had put like a potato in the microwave, and he'd fallen, and it was on when I came in, it was on fire.
Oh,
it was actually on fire. I could see flames in the So my brother was banished from that kitchen, but if my mom saw him near that kitchen,
No, I don't discourage. I discourage certain items if I'm not home. 12-year-old, he's like, hey, can I cook this? And he wants to fry stuff. I'm like, wait till I get home.
Right.
But no, you can't do while I'm not home. I encourage independence. So
my son's father made French fries And I don't think people understand that frozen and hot grease create overflow. And when the grease overflow, it catch fire. And he burnt down. I mean, like his mama, all the cabinets, everything was charred. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
It's definitely a balance. My son told me recently some feedback he gave me. He's like, Mom, sometimes I think, we were too independent. And I'm like, what? And he's like, yeah, I think his role was a little different because his role was
he the oldest?
He's the oldest. And so he's always been like, you have to care for your sisters. Watch out for your sisters, right? Yeah. So and we were all in the call. He said that, like, I sometimes feel like we were too independent. Like we had to solve the problems ourselves.
Sometimes I've got.
Well, guess what? It taught him how to be an adult. Because guess what?
It did.
An adult, you go. Those are the things that you literally have to do. You have to figure it out.
Exactly.
I had a friend who had to pretty much raise her siblings, and she's got a lot of resentment for her mum because of it. Like a lot of resentment because she felt like the whole of her childhood was just make sure your sisters are okay, make sure your brothers have got this, make sure that run the bath, do this, and it can go. So, like I said,
especially for girls, it can go more. The girls feel like they don't have a childhood because they are literally raising the siblings. They're doing all the parental stuff, right?
So, Doris, I have
a careful about with my kids.
Yes,
the way they're spread out, I'm very conscientious of it, and the 20-year-old wouldn't let me not be. But she makes sure that it is known because people will mistake her younger brother for, oh no, that's not my child. This is my brother.
Right.
Yeah. So I have a question for you, Doris. In your coaching and consulting work, what are some of the challenges that you see Black fathers and Black mothers have when actually trying to balance leadership at home and at work?
I'll be honest with you. I think that's one of the things that they utilize. We tend to separate ourselves as just a part of our experience. We have this person that we are when we go to work, and then we feel like we have this life when we're at home. We code switch. And I did it for a long time. I've now exited kind of corporate America, and I work for myself because of the level of burnout and exhaustion I experienced from having a code switch. What I think some of us do as Black parents is we utilize all these leadership skills in the workplace, but we don't take them home. Okay. We reserve those type of things for work. And I'm like, some of the things that you do there really would help you at home. For an example, I have IDPs, which are individual development plans that you create in the workspace. I was responsible for creating that for all of my employees. I've had teams as big as 5, as big as 10,000, but I would create these development plans to help them be the best leader that they could be in the business. Why wouldn't I do that for my child? Why wouldn't I take that skill set and those abilities and bring them into my home and say, what's our development plan for you? Where do you want to be socially? Where do you want to be academically?
Because we've always been growing up in the Black community, whether you're American, Caribbean, African, we've always been brought up that we wear.
Yes.
And let me tell you, even like when people used to, like my mom, she's an amazing HR, guru, does her thing. And people used to say, oh my God, your mom's so fantastic. She's so this, she's so that. And I used to go,
I have friends like that. I have friends like that they literally get to see the best part of their parents outside or in the community or in their workspace, and then they're different at home.
Even with my dad,
look in the mirror and see, like, am I giving my best to all these other people and not my children? And so what I did was I started applying those same things in the home. So I do these check-ins with them. And so that's what I have kind of noticed is, again, because we're so used to code switching and wearing masks and doing those different things, that sometimes we give all that good experience, all that work ethic, all that effort in the workplace, and then we come home and we don't give it the same. Like, we get to relax and then we're more chilled. And it's like, yeah, you need that. But also the things that made you wonderful at that job will also work to help you build high-performing children. And so that's kind of what I've done and what I've noticed. And I help them connect the dots that you can use those same skill sets in the workplace and at home and get success in both.
So what piece of advice, Doris, because we're going to wrap up soon, would you give to Black parents striving to raise strong, self-aware, and socially conscious children in today's world?
This is going to be connected to something that Tenisha said. Previous generations, we didn't talk enough. And we have to talk to our children. Again, certain things are taught and certain things are caught, right? We can say certain things. We grew up in the do as I say, not as I do. Like you could see your parents doing certain things, but they're grown, but you can't do it. It can't work like that going forward. You need to be able to teach, but also model to our kids. And we need to have conversations. So even when I'm not modeling the best, I need to be able to have an open conversation with my child as to why it looks like this and what I'm doing to kind of reconcile or resolve it. But I think that the one thing that we cannot neglect as Black parents is conversation with our kids. We need to talk to them about how the world is going to view them when they go outside of it. We need to speak with them about good and healthy relationships. We need to talk about our mistakes. We can't hide the things that we've been through. I think I have helped my daughter so much just by being open about my experience, because she happens to be a child that she doesn't have to touch the fire to know it's hot. If I tell her it's hot, she trusts me to know that it's hot.
Yeah.
But that comes from those conversations and building trust and them understanding that it's a human experience. We all make mistakes. Every saint got a past. Every sinner got a future. We got to talk to them.
But that's an important point. I think that generationally we aren't like our mothers, aunties, grandmothers. We didn't get some of those lessons because they didn't talk to us about the mistakes they made.
No.
They didn't talk to us about, marriages that failed or dating or just bad relationships. Menopause. I mean, like all this stuff. It just is like, did my granny go through this? It's like, wait a minute. I mean,
I'm 40 years old and still hear conversations like the tea of what happened. I'm like, what? Grandma did what?
Well, I'm going to open this question to everybody, and this will be our last question. So I'm going to give everybody about a minute and a half to answer it. How can we, or how do you see us creating more open and safe spaces for conversations about mental health, emotions, and vulnerabilities within Black families? I'm going to start with you, Tenisha.
I think it's really kind of like acknowledging when we're not having good days, that we don't have to be the strong Black woman all the time. We don't have, or for men, the strong Black men, that we have emotions, we have feelings, we have good and bad days. We have days where we just, we may be mentally fatigued. It takes that emotional regulation. It takes that being self-aware. Sometimes it just takes, you being able to admit that you're not having a good day. And right now it's not a good time for you. And being okay with that. Being like, not feeling like, because there are a lot of, I think, as Black people, we're always told that we have to meet this standard. And that when we don't meet whatever standard it is, I know in my family, I've seen people who they've gone the opposite direction. The feeling that you have to be perfect. And when you're not perfect, the whole world crumbles. It's being human. Like, we're human.
Okay. Lauren, what about you?
Sorry, repeat the question for me.
Because I know you were thinking about it. I said, how do you feel like we can create more open and safe spaces for conversations about mental health, emotions, and vulnerability within the Black family?
I think sometimes it's about having difficult conversations and being honest, because everyone wants to be held in high regard, like you said, Tenisha. And I think just by showing a vulnerability and being honest, I think, Doris, you said it. Look, if you're gonna lead the way, you can't lead being blind or making that person just not know where they're going. So you need to be open with certain things. I think there is a certain level of how much you do expose your children or family to, because you need to keep some things to yourself. But I think it is about creating like a safe space as well for no judgment. We're very good at judgment. We're very good at, I didn't know you was doing that, or you've done that, or you said that, or so it's a safe space. And it's also about confidence to know that you can trust that person in whatever you tell them, that they're going to hold that, to where it needs to be.
Exactly.
Okay. And what about you, Doris? What do you think?
Much like what the other ladies have said, I think if we want to create these safe spaces, we need to listen and suspend judgment.
Yeah.
Again, we're still parents, so we may
Yeah.
have to judge a little bit, but I think listen and suspend judgment. I think sometimes we're too quick to reply or think we have to fix something, and sometimes we just need to listen. And so I think if we really want to create an open and safe space, listen and suspend judgment.
Well, I'm going to say one of the things that I think we also need to do is be honest with ourselves. I think in some situations, we really need to be honest with ourselves about who we are as people and how we're projecting certain things onto our children and how we can break certain generational traumas or certain generational behaviors and traits. Is I agree with all of you ladies, is by having open conversations. But I think those open conversations not only need to take place with our children, they need to take place with ourselves, and they need to take place with the generations that came before us as well. Because our children don't just learn from us, they learn from the whole family dynamic. So in my case, where my parents were not very instrumental in raising me, my children still learn. My son still learned from my parents. My son still learned from my grandmother. My son can't stand to be in the room with me and my grandmama together because he say we two wild women. Okay, so in those situations, I feel like we need to be honest with who we are so that we can be honest with our children. I think a lot of times we talked about earlier about putting masks on. I think sometimes we put masks on as parents. We try to play one role and do one thing when we really need to be brutally honest with our children about the world, about some of the things that we're going through, so that they have we try to shield our children from our problems. Instead of exposing them and teaching them how to overcome certain things. So even when we're having financial burdens, no, I'm not saying put that on your child, your financial burden, but teach your children how to run bills and run a budget and save money so that they don't end up in the certain situations or the same situations that we ended up in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So with that being said, you guys, that is going to come to the end of the show. Doris, I'm going to drop everybody else off the screen just for a moment, and I'm going to let you stay up, and I want you to tell people where they can find your book, how they can get in touch with you, and all of that good stuff, and then we'll come back on and say goodbye, okay?
All right, sounds good. Hey everyone, again, my name is Doris Jackson-Shazier. You can learn more about me and my story of raising justice, and also my upcoming book, Pieces to Peace, where I talk about how to navigate toxic workspaces at my website, dorisjacksonshazier.com. Also, for business services, workshops, and leadership coaching and development, you can check out my website, shaziercoachingconsult.com. Lastly, the book Raising Justice is available on Amazon. So just put in the words Raising Justice, Justice Lessons Learned Through Motherhood, and you'll be able to find it there. I'm also on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. It's my name, Doris Jackson-Shazier. Definitely look me up. I enjoy interacting with you guys. And thank you guys so much. Thank you, ladies, for the opportunity.
Thank you, Doris, for even coming to deal with us today. And
you ladies are wonderful.
This is like a crazy little conversation. Like you see, we literally, you see how we just talk. So for anybody out there, if you're interested in being a part of this conversation or any conversation that we have, you can always jump over to our website, dearblackwoman.me. Up under the tab that says podcast, if you'd like to be a guest, if you'd like to leave your opinion, or if you just like to share something with us, you can go in and fill out that information and let us know how you feel. With that being said, until next time, you guys. Listen, everybody, just want to say thank you. That wraps up today's episode of Dear Black Woman. We hope this conversation sparked reflection and a new perspectives on parenting and maybe family life in the Black community. A huge thank you again to our guest, Doris Jackson-Shazier, for sharing her wisdom and experience from raising justice. Special thank you again to my co-hosts, Lauren and Tenisha, who always check in from somewhere else other than where I am. And to you, our listeners, and for tuning in. If you loved our conversation, be sure to subscribe, like, leave a review, comment, follow, share. And until next time, break generational cycles, lead with love, and always remember it takes a village to raise or do anything.
Thanks, guys. Bye.